All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be my Week 6 preview, the victory over the San Francisco 49ers. Washington ends up winning this football game 26-24, and we barely end up squeaking this one out against a team that has not won a football game yet, but was on the cusp of winning just about every game that they've played. Going over some of the statistics from this game, taking a look at, it's hard to compare quarterback performances considering the Niners ended up taking their starter out. They ended up taking out their starter with C.J. Beathard, bringing him in as a backup, who I believe is a rookie this year. C.J. Beathard was their go-to guy, and it's, from what I understand, not necessarily a situation where their offense was struggling. I think they were just looking for something a little bit different, igniting a spark somewhere else, so they ended up going with CJ. Frankly, I'm tired of the comparisons from CJ Beathard and his grandfather. There's not a single medium of news reporting on this football game that doesn't mention his grandfather and his ties to his grandfather. And the part that I find interesting about the C.J. Beathard saga and its beginning phases here in the NFL is they treat it as though C.J. Beathard is the spawn, is the lineage of a great Hall of Fame football player. Don't be looking for those great genetic lines being handed down to CJ and looking forward to a possible Hall of Fame career himself. He doesn't come from that kind of stock. His grandfather, Bobby Beathard, was an executive here, and he was not a player here. So his name on the plaque, his name in the Hall of Fame, and everywhere else it is, it's not because of what he did on the field, it's because of who he put on the field. So hats off to CJ, because he did really, really well, but he also did really, really well against a team that really didn't scheme or plan for him. So it's going to be interesting in the next 2 or 3 weeks how well he does. I suspect he'll be fine under the tutelage of a Kyle Shanahan as a starter. I think that'll be definitely their worst places he could be. But taking a look at some of the statistics, Kirk Cousins ended up coming out of this game with 330 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, which is interesting considering it was actually 2 interceptions. One of them ended up just getting called back. And then right on the very next play, of course, he had to throw another one. His performance in this game, I will say, was good. It was not awesome. It was not overly impressive. I would say if this is the average performance we can get out of Kirk Cousins, then we're actually going to do really, really well. Because there were a lot of things that happened in this football game as far as miscues and missed passes were concerned. And I'm thinking I'm understanding a little bit about the missed passes where people are just in the wrong place, miscues, people that should be in a certain area of the football field and are not, and he's putting the ball in that area and is making it look like he's a dumbass for throwing it there. I don't necessarily think that's it at all. I think Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis definitely had their moments where they did well and moments where they just weren't in the right spot, and it made it look like a ball was just going to nowhere. But then there were also passes in this play where I would squarely put on Kirk Cousins because it was either overthrown, it was just out of range of a receiver. I think Ryan Grant had one, and also our rookie Josh Doctson had just a simple basic out route that he could have been open to catch if it wouldn't have been overthrown. Little things like that I think need to be shored up a little bit as far as the consistency of our quarterback goes. And I'm watching his performance, I'm watching his technique, and I'm not really seeing a whole lot that he's doing wrong that he isn't doing normally. He's just not throwing the ball in the right spot. So given more time, he's going to probably improve in those areas. Taking a look at the rushing, Chris Thompson ended up leading this football team with rushing, ended up leading with 33 yards. He had his moments where he did really, really well, but the San Francisco 49ers, I think, wanted to put this game on the back of Kirk Cousins to get him to live and die by his arm. Chris Thompson being the leader on this team with 16 carries. Kirk Cousins was right behind him. Kirk Cousins had 24 yards rushing, or 26 yards rushing with 4 carries. Right behind him is Samaje Perine and Jamison Crowder. There really wasn't a whole lot from anybody else that was notable. There were a lot of plays where we ran for maybe a yard, even some negative yardage in there. But I feel that San Francisco was doing a lot to try to stymie that. More on that later. Receiving, Chris Thompson was the leading receiver on this football team. He had 4 receptions for over 105 yards. Vernon Davis was behind him with 3 catches, 65 yards. And Ryan Grant and then Jordan Reed. We had a fairly decent afternoon as far as receiving goes against this team in their backfield. Their backfield ended up playing a little bit better than what I had expected. I was expecting just a little bit more of a mild performance from this football team. This team had a little bit of a spark. The San Francisco team had a spark underneath them once C.J. Beathard got in the game. Once he got into the game, we started to see what a team like San Francisco was like with momentum. We haven't really seen a whole lot of that from this team. At least I hadn't in the last 3 games that they had played. So it was interesting to watch what the San Francisco 49ers could do with a little bit of momentum. Going into the defense, Zach Brown, Quentin Dunbar, Bashar Breeland, Monte Nicholson, these individuals were leading with tackles. Taking a look at the sacks, we had Matt Ioannidis has got a sack. Preston Smith was in on some sacks. There were some times we got to the quarterback, but then with Brian Hoyer, I don't necessarily know if they were attributing some of these sacks that we had to one individual. But there were some times we were able to collapse the pocket. But then CJ ended up getting in this game and doing what we expect to see a little bit more from a Kyle Shanahan offense, and that's getting back there and throwing this football in a very, very quick and efficient manner. I'm not necessarily certain if he's doing a whole lot as far as check downs are concerned. He's just playing like a rookie quarterback. So I think that change of pace kind of changed the momentum of the game towards the San Francisco 49ers play, and it definitely affected us because I think in a lot of areas we were not ready for it. Going into some of the notes that I have taken in regards to this game, Ryan Grant will be the first guy that I will talk about, and I'll be the first one to mention that Ryan Grant played a very, very good football game for us. 2 or 3 occasions where Ryan Grant came up with huge catches. And this is a banner year, 2017 being for Ryan Grant, because we've had a couple of years that have been really, really bad where Ryan Grant is concerned. And I know I have called for his trade. I have called for him to get cut loose and to watch this kind of development and performance to maturate with another football team would have been typical Redskins style. And I'll be the first one to admit I was completely wrong in regards to Ryan Grant. It's understandable that there are teams that only give you 2 seasons really to get whatever it is you have to put on the football field, and then they end up letting you go. That's why they call it the not for long league. But Ryan Grant, we stuck with him. And it's very rarely do we stick with a player and have it pan out for us. And right now, Ryan Grant is emerging as one of our top wideouts. He's becoming a target that this team is comfortable throwing to. And in this game, there were 2 or 3 conversions that he had that were big time catches, really big boy catches that you would see a guy like a Pierre Garçon for the last couple of years be able to come down with in his sleep. But Ryan Grant is starting to become that guy, and if we can throw in a little bit more of Josh Doctson in that same situation, maybe he needs a little bit more time, to mature on the football field. Technically, this is his first year, because the year before he was injury laden. He never got to really see the football field all that much. Vernon Davis. Taking a look at Vernon Davis's performance, he had a couple of plays where he was looking like a collegiate football player all over again. They're letting this old man run roughshod all over the football field on a couple of occasions. But then there were some momentum shift situations in there as well. The overthrown pass that I was talking about before that looked like it was going to nowhere ended up being a miscue on Vernon Davis's part, where there was a error on the coverage, apparently, according to the interview by Kirk Cousins on the radio. He had miscued double coverage, which I don't understand. He miscued cover 2 with cover 1. And apparently cover 1, he's supposed to move to a particular area. For cover 2, he's supposed to move to another. And it's not that hard to tell cover 1 and cover 2. It's really very, very basic. He just probably had a little bit of a brain fart and ended up playing the cover 2 when Kirk Cousins was throwing to the cover 3. And it looked like that it just pretty much went nowhere, which it kind of did. But little miscues like that end up becoming huge for us. Also, the fumble. Let's talk about the fumble for a second. The strip fumble that ended up going all the way back, that was huge for the San Francisco 49ers. It ended up tying this football game for them. I think everybody that takes a look at the footage can tell that this was not a fumble, that his arm was down. The only issue that I take with that is that the ruling on the field was ruled a fumble, and being that there was not necessarily conclusive proof that this was a downed football before that football came out, we are kind of guessing where the football is before the shoulder is down. I don't know what the video quality is like for these referees when they're taking a look at a monitor that's 5 feet from their face. I know what it's like to look at a monitor in the sun, and unless you got great quality, you can't really see much at all. So I question all of that stuff. If you guys remember, there used to be a hood. There used to be a camera and a hood. A guy would put his face in the hood so that there's no outside light coming in and interfering with your monitor. And now the monitor is just out in the open. Here you go, take a look. It's in the sun. So I don't know what the quality is like. Maybe they're not necessarily seeing the same kind of quality that we're seeing in HD at home. But that was definitely, in my opinion, not a fumble. He was down, his elbow was down before the ball came out. The only thing that I can justify the referee not going back on this call was that maybe he just didn't see that there was conclusive enough proof. And hey, whatever. There have been worse calls in this game. But even though it was huge, that was a huge momentum shift for us. At that point, the 49ers ended up scoring, and then we ended up, I think it was, they tied the football game, and they ended up putting up 17 unanswered points, which is not the performance you want to see from a football team of the caliber of the Washington Redskins this season after a bye week. We've had more than enough time to really turn the screws of this football team, and that's a cue that I had mentioned in my last preview football video, was that this was a team that you had to step on the throat for. You had to put the gas on these guys. And there was a lot of plays in this game. There were a lot of times in this game where we just didn't perform well because I just don't think the execution was there. This offensive line, I think, is way more battered than the media is interpreting. I'm just not seeing them fire off the ball, and it's not because I think they're lazy. It's not because I just don't think this was not our day of executing. I honestly think that there's only one person on this team that I think kind of had a little bit of a lack of execution, but the rest of them, I think it was slow. For one thing, Spencer Long got his ass kicked. Spencer Long got his butt kicked on many plays. He had a really bad day, and he was going up against a really good defensive front. He just had a bad day. And when you are not allowing Trent Williams to pull on the occasions where we normally ask him to pull, we're allowing it. There are times he did. Don't get me wrong, there were plenty of times that he did, but there were plays that I noticed where we were kicking out Sean Loval, and then we were leaving it at that. And Sean Loval is not, I like Sean Loval as much as I want him to be replaced on this football team. I love the guy. I feel the Polynesian roots between me and this individual and any other individual on this football team. I love our Polynesian Redskin football players, but man, Sean, it's not his strength to ask him to pull on counters, and he's just one of those guys that I would much rather have blocked straight up and down. He has the strength, he has the mean streak. He just doesn't have the agility to get out there in the flat like he should. And a lot of the plays that I think we were running, we were asking him to do exactly that, and it wasn't working out for us. I think that Morgan Moses played a decent game. There were times where I think that people were able to take advantage of him, and him pulling out didn't necessarily bode wonders for us. I've seen him play a lot better. Brandon Sheriff played a decent game as well. There were plays where I just watched him truck people. There were a couple of plays where he just T-boned people, and phenomenal play. And then there were times people were getting by him. It's like, what is going on? The vigor of this defense comes out every once in a while. I will give it that. They got a lot, and I think a lot of it is just the youth that's on that football team coming up against us. Trent Williams, this is probably one of the worst games I've seen him play, and he was playing with a massive injury. And I'm not going to come down on Trent because, frankly, I had said it at the beginning of this game that he should have sat. We really should have sat him. We would have had a much different outcome in this football game. And yes, a victory means everything, but when you got the schedule coming up that we got coming up, you're going to need a healthy Trent Williams, and I really hope that we can look forward to that after this football game, because, man, there were a couple times Trent went down, and the way in which he went down, the manner in which he went down, it looked violent, it looked sudden, and it was like I was gasping, like, oh my God, please get back up, please get back up. And then, the media really wouldn't cover it all that much. It appeared that he would get back up and back in the huddle and he'd be fine. And you're just like, man, if that didn't take him out of this football game, that's got to have an effect. And there were plays where people got in the backfield and around him because I think that they were exploiting that weakness with his leg. He had very, very low mobility. So that was attributed to probably one of the worst games that I've seen him play. So I'm not going to really say that he sucked in this game. He was just playing very, very injured. The San Francisco 49ers on many occasions on the plays where they knew we were going to run were crowding the line of scrimmage. They showed a lot of double-A gap pressure, and they came with it on a couple of occasions, and we actually picked it up fairly well. But on plays where they knew we were going to run, they ended up crowding the line of scrimmage, which ended up, allowing us to not necessarily gain the yardage that we're used to gaining. I think it was just a strategy of this football team to grind down the football, to grind down the clock in very strategic moments of this game, which ended up, bringing this game down to the wire and allowing us to win it. So on plays that people would say that he should have probably passed it to gain a first down, there were times when he just ran it to grind out the clock, and I'm kind of respectful of his decision to do that. The interception we talked about before, the miscue, and then the play right after, I think it was just, he floated a ball to the sideline, and it was just a great play by the corner, a phenomenal play by the corner. I have not seen that corner play that well all season long. He got to it, got underneath it, and picked it off. I guess, do you really want to come down on a quarterback for taking a chance downfield? Not necessarily, because we don't come down on a quarterback for taking a chance downfield when he's successful with it. We only come down on him when it's not successful. And how convenient for us as fans to be able to do that. I'm going to try not to necessarily do that. If you're going to take a chance downfield, I'm going to applaud you for when you come down with it. But if it's a miscue, doesn't quite get you the results that you want, ends up an interception, I'm not going to come down on you as hard, because I'll take the good with the bad at this point. I do believe that there are times during the game when you have to stretch the field. You just have to. So I've got no problem with the interception. Given the result that it had given them, I don't necessarily think that they got any points out of it. I think they ended up kicking the ball after that, which is no big deal to a certain extent. Well, I guess it is a big deal because it grinds more time off the clock for us. But honestly, the only thing that I would question about that particular play is it was a 3rd and 12. And I don't know why we're floating a football off the corner to a Vernon Davis at that particular point in the football game. To me, it would have made more sense to throw a shallow route and try to get a shallow route runner to get the distance and to earn the distance with his legs. And if he doesn't get it with his body and ends up coming down just shy of the first down, well, then you kick it. I would much rather play smart with the football than floating up footballs on 3rd and 12 in the second half of the football game. Dustin Hopkins. When did Dustin Hopkins get hurt? Did he get hurt? Did he get worked over in the locker room? That's the only time when I think I could have seen him getting hurt. Because now all of a sudden we have signed a brand new kicker whose experience comes from kicking footballs in Walmart parking lots. He's never kicked a pro game in his life. We've signed this new kid, and you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and look it up now. I don't even know why I am, but I'm going to look it up. This is not something that I normally do when I try to take a look at people who come onto this football team that are brand new, because I'm the type of person that's like, you know what, if you want me to know who you are, you better earn your name. We ended up signing a Nick Rose. Nick Rose. I don't even know where Nick Rose is from. Last time he kicked was in Texas in 2015. That's. God bless us. God bless us and our charity work as Washington Redskins organization, giving people and the less fortunate a chance in the pros. We've got the Eagles, Cowboys, and Seahawks coming up. So, Nick, you better be able to kick that football, because it's going to fall on you on a lot of these games. I'm telling you right now, Nick Rose, it's going to fall on you. And this team better know something that the rest of us don't. I'm still just trying to, I'm going to scratch my head. I'm going to scratch my head as how he got on short-term, how Dustin Hopkins got on short-term AR. Or short-term IR. I just think that we were working him over in the parking lot after the game. You missed 2 major field goals, one of which you've got no business being a pro if you miss. Dustin Hopkins the last couple of seasons has sort of kind of trended a little bit into the area of the unknown. We're not quite sure what we're going to get out of him, and that's not what you want from a field goal kicker in this league. You want to be able to bank on those guys. And right now he's kicking himself out of a job. So who knows? Maybe this is a sign of things to come. We ended up having the performance of our defensive backfield. Let me just go ahead and talk about that in particular. I was very, very impressed with the way that this backfield had played for us. This backfield could have played a hell of a lot worse. I think that when we ended up losing DJ Swearinger and not necessarily certain if he was going to come back, that was huge for us. I think that, he's a big part of the gel that's holding the secondary together right now. I'm very, very shocked that Deshazor Everett is listed as questionable for this weekend. That concussion that he had sustained on the football field, I saw it as soon as it happened, and I said, this kid's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks at least. That is a huge, huge concussion that he had took. That knockout you see in the UFC. And it's the type of knockout where you are completely out of it. And I don't know necessarily what sounds he was making. Usually there's a gargling noise when you get a concussion of that magnitude, and you get an extension of the arms and the legs, which is common with that type of concussion. And it's something that takes a long time to recover from. So somehow he was able to come down off a concussion protocol and be listed as questionable for this week. I've seen people for teams that have just had a headache and they're out, 4 to 6 weeks. So I think we should count our lucky stars that Monte Nicholson is listed as questionable. So hopefully he's going to be able to come out and play, and hopefully that if he does, it's not going to be a detriment to him as far as his health is concerned. Deshazor Everett did not play in this football game. We ended up having Stephon McClure back there. He did fairly well. Taking a look at Bashaud Breeland gave us a little bit of a scare with the knee injury that he had. We weren't sure if he was going to get back up and come in and play. As far as I know, Monte Nicholson did come back later on in this game, and he did play. I don't think Bashaud Breeland did. I could be wrong. Quinton Dunbar surprised the hell out of me. Quinton Dunbar did. And I wasn't necessarily worried or stressed about Quinton Dunbar coming into this football game. There were some of you that were, and rightfully as well, you should be. Quinton Dunbar has always been an up-and-comer on this football team. His first season, he didn't play very well at all. His second season, you started to see some fairly good improvement, and now he's in his third season, and it's starting to come together a little bit. We're starting to see some good things out of this corner. We're starting to see some Quinton Dunbar action come out where he's starting to emerge. He had a major miscue with that deep touchdown pass that CJ Beathard threw, and that was all on him. That zone coverage was blown by him. He had 2 split ends on the side, one when he was supposed to pick up deep, and he didn't. He passed it off to his safety, and it was a single high safety. You can't ask a single high safety to cover 2 people going deep. You've got to have a responsibility, and I do believe it's even if you're dividing it into thirds. I don't know what the coverage is. It's hard to tell on a single high safety coverage. If it's cover 3 or cover 1, you'd have to be in the huddle to know what that is. And it looked more and more, the way that play developed, it looked more and more like it was a cover 1. And if your guy goes deep, you go deep with him. And I just think that there was a miscue on that part. I think that particular, it's little things like that where Quinton Dunbar is going to have, or maybe it was Fabian Moreau. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but both of those guys, Fabian Moreau and Quinton Dunbar, you're going to have miscues like that on occasion because of their lack of experience, especially when it comes to zone coverage. But I'm very impressed with Quinton Dunbar. I was also very impressed with Fabian Moreau. And some of you guys have talked about moving Fabian Moreau from a slot corner out to the outside. And I think he's proved in this game that he can start taking some time in that area. I don't necessarily know if we're going to have him replace individuals to the likes of a Bashaud Breeland and a Josh Norman. He is not at that level yet, but he's gaining experience. This game was great experience for our backfield, for our backups. It should give you a lot of confidence when Bashaud Breeland and Josh Norman come back that we do have some individuals in that backfield with a couple of seasons of experience that can actually hold their own. So I'm going to tip my hat right now to Fabian Moreau and Quinton Dunbar. Great job on their parts. There's not really anybody else in this game that really stood out. Our defensive line played really, really well at times, and other times I just think that they played marginal. Jonathan Allen ended up going out with a Liz Frank injury. He could be done for the rest of the season, and this was the major worry that I had with this kid coming out of college, with the promise that he was given to us as a first-round draft selection, was whether he was going to be able to sustain the damage that he's going to receive in the NFL. He already came into this league with an injury, and now he's leaving one this season with an injury, and it's doubtful as to whether he's going to be back. Another individual that I don't give enough credit to is Matt Ioannidis. Matt Ioannidis, this guy's for real, and I think at this point it is smart to keep him in a rotation. Don't have him out there all the time. Get him in situational positions to where he can collapse that pocket. He's a great pressure up the middle, and I don't even necessarily know how he's doing it at 6'3", but he's doing it. He's got a great motor, he's got great strength, and he's great pressure up the middle. It's a great job on his part. Stacey McGee's coming up. 5-year seasoned veteran out of Oklahoma. He's a guy that's starting to do really, really well. He has moments where he shines and flashes, and I don't think that enough people necessarily recognize what it is that he's doing for us, but he's doing a very, very good job. Ziggy Hood's playing as well as Ziggy Hood, as I had imagined. Ziggy Hood is Ziggy Hood. You know, there's moments where he does well, and there's moments where he's just average. Zach Brown, I think, is our best defensive player on the football field right now. He did a phenomenal job against the Niners. There's not a game where he hasn't done a phenomenal job. I was expecting just a little bit more out of Ryan Kerrigan in this football game. I feel that their tackles were big. Their tackles were extremely strong. I just don't think their tackles had the mobility, especially their left tackle. Their left tackle is a monster. The guy is huge. And I think you can exploit him with your agility. I think that you can. You just don't go running square into the chest of that tackle. You just don't go doing it. You're not going to overpower him. The minute he gets those big meat paws on you and you're in the middle of his shoulders, you're not going to do anything. You may as well just lay down on the football field, curl up in the fetal position, and go to sleep. Because that's about as far as you're going to get. Now, I would have liked to have seen Ryan do a little bit more. We dropped him back into coverage a lot, and I'm not sure how I necessarily feel about that. Ryan Kerrigan is not a cover. He's not a cover linebacker. He's had one game where a ball got tipped and he intercepted it and returned it for a touchdown, and that by no means makes him a cover linebacker. He is a pass rusher, and he needs to stay a pass rusher. On every down that he's out there, he needs to be rushing the quarterback. That's going to do it as far as the defensive side of things, as far as me pointing out certain things in that particular area. There are not a whole lot of other notes that I took in this game. I watched this game 3 times, and it just comes down to the fact that I think that there was just a lot of lack of execution on our part to really take momentum back in this football game, especially when it came to C.J. Beathard. If you noticed, we were blitzing a lot more with C.J. Beathard than we ever were, you know, with their backup or with their starting quarterback, Brian Hoyer. We were blitzing Beathard a lot, and Beathard did a really good job of throwing the shallow route. I'm surprised that there are not more backup quarterbacks that do this. They set this offense up to where they were expecting blitz and putting people in the zones where they could get open. And that's what a lot of teams don't do. They bring in a backup quarterback and they expect them to do a 5-step drop and wait for a long developing play, and they end up getting their ass handed to them because they can't read blitzes. They can't move coverage. They haven't had enough time under snaps, and they end up, you know, getting their ass kicked, and everybody thinks that they sucks. C.J. Beathard did a really good job of stepping back and noticing the open man and pitching and catching. And I think a big part of that comes from their offensive coach, their head coach on that football team. So that momentum shifted, and you started to see a different San Francisco team. It's not going to be long before this team ekes out a win. As far as the Washington Redskins go, we've got a little bit of a long week coming up, a Monday Night Football game against our heated rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. I will be going back and watching a couple of their football games. I'm not necessarily certain. I will probably do a preview video. I kind of want to come out with a preview video every week. And the Eagles team, what am I going to say about the Eagles that everybody doesn't already know? You know, you're going to have to cover their tight end. That's what it comes down to. There's my preview video right there. I can make a 5-second preview video, cover the tight end. If you don't cover the tight end, you're going to get killed and you're going to lose this football game. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If you can't cover that tight end, there's not really a whole lot to look forward to. There's some other playmakers on this football team, some guys that can gash you for deep yardage, but on 3rd and long, they're going to go after their tight end. So you got to be able to cover that. You got to be able to take that comfortable thing away from Carson Wentz. And maybe it's a situation where you've got to put a safety on him and just hope that Nelson Aguilar doesn't catch something in single-man coverage, on a consistent basis. I doubt that that's possible, but, who knows? We got to be able to do something against that tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles in order to be able to shore up on Monday Night Football. And it's going to be a primetime game. We've done really, really well so far in primetime football games, and it's going to be a game on the road in Philadelphia and that horrible, horrible Eagles nest that they have over there. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to a lot of it. Injury concerns are what need to be at the forefront of every single Redskin fan going into this football game. The injury concerns are massive. And to kind of go over a couple of those, the injuries that we're looking at for the Washington Redskins, of course, Rashard Breeland left with a knee injury. Defensive lineman, of course, Jonathan Allen is out with that Liz Frank. Safety, Stephon McClure ended up suffering a knee injury. DJ Swearinger was elevated to a stinger, and I think he ended up coming back after that stinger was dealt. Monte Nicholson was evaluated for a concussion and apparently a shoulder injury as well, but he ended up returning after being cleared, which is surprising. And still out, of course, we have running back Rob Kelly and Josh Norman, who were both activated to inactive in this football game. It's questionable as to whether they're going to be back for next week. Josh Norman, I think, has said before he was looking at possibly coming back for this game against Philadelphia, but I'm not counting on any of that. So it's going to be an interesting week, guys. We got a fairly long week after a bye week to prepare for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's going to be a pretty tall order. And then after that, we've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. I will tell you right now, if we are able to maintain our performance and what we have been doing in the last 4 weeks, if we are able to maintain that performance for the next 4 weeks, we are going to do really, really well. If we end up losing this game against Philadelphia, I think even still we would have a really good shot at being the Dallas Cowboys, and we have a really good shot at being the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks game kind of makes me worried a little bit because we are going to be on the road playing against that crowd. That crowd's going to be the biggest thing. That Seahawks team is not... They're not what they have been billed to be for years. They have been on the decline the last couple of years. Their record right now is 3-2, but they're undefeated at home. All three of those victories, 2 of them have come at home, and they haven't. In fact, taking a look at their schedule, guys, they haven't played an NFC East team yet. They haven't played a single NFC East team yet. They play an NFC East team this week against the New York Giants, and then there's us. So, and the New York Giants are coming off a very, very big victory. They have a little bit of momentum going on right now, and they're playing at home against the Seattle Seahawks. So that's going to be interesting. I wouldn't mind watching that game to see what the result of that game is going to be. They're finally going to get a taste of one of the toughest divisions in football, so we'll have to see how well it is that they play. So, not impressed with their schedule thus far, but they will be playing against us in their home crowd, so that's going to be a tall order. And I'm going to concentrate just on those 3 games for right now. I'm not going to go beyond that. But Philadelphia, let's bring it home. Got to have this victory on the road. That's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. For us fans of the Twin Feather, we ride together. Redskins for life. Peace out. Until next time.